Okay, what we're going to look at here is using Color, the extra software that comes with Final Cut Studio. Obviously this is Final Cut 7, so this is more of a built-in for Final Cut X, but for what we're doing today I'm going to use Final Cut 7 and Color. So let's have a look at the clip that I've got here. Let's just skip back and play this.
Are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it.
Okay, so we all know the shot from The Matrix of the woman in the red dress. So what we're going to do today is we're going to change the background of this image to a black and white whilst we're going to keep this red dress. Now what we have to do obviously is we have to go into color to do this, so then we can use what would be a keyframe on the red dress to make sure that when she moves in the shot, obviously we don't lose any of this red dress. So what we can do obviously is we've got our clip in there, we can go to File, Send to, and Color. Now you can name this whatever you want, so I'm going to call it Red Dress 1. We can see a duration there with 19 seconds, just over 19 seconds, and hit OK. Now depending on obviously your computer, you'll see how fast color opens up. Obviously I'm using a laptop, so it might be a little bit slower. But what we get is once we've got color coming up, we're going to get a few rooms available to us once it's imported the information. Okay, so here's color. This is our color. We've basically got obviously the two main windows, our scopes, which are showing us our colors, our red, green, blues, lumas, etc. And our second box, second window, which this is where we're going to do all of our work. So obviously we've got in here our setup window, which is where we can set up any preferences, etc. Our primary in, so this is where we can do any basic color correction if we wanted to do. Our secondaries, this is what we're going to be working with. Color FX, if we wanted to add some sort of FX, then obviously we can do that in this. Primary out, which is basically very similar to primary in. This is where we can do our sort of final stage color correction if we're still not happy. Our geometry, which works with our secondaries window. Our still store, which obviously if we want to take a picture and have a look at a before and after of what we're actually working on, then we can do that in here. And the final window we've got is our render queue. Obviously this is the last place we kind of go. But we're going to be working in our secondaries window today. So we've got our shadows, we've got our midtones, we've got our highlights. We've got also our key picker, color picker, that's in here, where we can obviously choose our colors that we're going to work with. We've got some additional boxes here that look at key blurring, the global or the wide hue, saturation, highlight saturation, shadow saturation, any masters of lift or gain that we might be interested in, and our master gamma. Another small area we've got here which shows our preview eventually. So we've got our preview, we've got our curves for hue and saturation and luma. Obviously what we're going to work with today is, if we just zoom in on our clip, so Apple or Command plus will zoom in and then we can scroll and have a look. So let's find our red dress. Where is she in our main shot? There's our main, pretty much our main shot is there, so we could start from here and then work backwards and work forwards so we know what we're working with. So what we've got in the secondaries is we've got a thing here that we call vignette. So if I click on my vignette, it shows me a circle. Okay, so there are certain shapes that we can work with with our vignette. We can work with a circle, we can work with a square. Obviously, we can move these around and we can adjust them as we would need to, or we can actually work with a user-defined shape. So when I click the user-defined shape on here, this is going to jump and take me into our geometry tab. So if I click this, there we go. Okay, so this is now moved into our geometry tab. So in our geometry tab we've got a few windows over here, one which says attach. So here we've got an untitled 0, and we've got a thing here that says attached shape. Obviously this says nothing because there's no shape attached at the moment. We've also got some tracker options. We've got a softness option if we want to soften our shape that we're about to make. And then we can do new or remove, so we can add a new shape, we can remove shapes, we can save and we can load shapes as well that we've already made, or we can close off shapes. Obviously it depends on what you want. So today we're just going to make a basic shape that's going to go around the dress that we're looking at. So all you have to do is we just click and click and we click around until we've defined our shape that we're looking at. It is pretty much covering the red dress that we need. So then we go back to our first point and we click this and we have a little green box that comes up. Now this means that we've completed our shape. So we have our shape, that is there. Now the next step, we need to attach this shape onto our video. So we just hit attach. And there we have it. See, now it comes up and it says detach. So that means that this shape here, untitled 0, and we've got 1, 1, 1, that's now been attached to my actual shape. Now, if I move this clip, you can see that the shape's not doing anything. Okay, so obviously, if I want to change things, then we can see if I move to a certain point here, for example, we can see there's still parts of the dress here that are showing. So obviously we need to now make this shape movable in order to make sure that we're covering all parts of the shape. So I'm going to go back to our main point where we're going to go back to our very first frame where we can see her. So obviously we can keyframe this. So if we go here, there's our kind of, probably our first shot. Now I'm not worried about all of this section, I'm only looking at the top section here. So obviously I'm going to want to move these fractionally. Now that kind of covers all of the areas of the dress. And what we can do in here, we can go into our timeline, and we can add a keyframe. We can also, the shortcut on this is 9 on the keyboard. So we can hit keyframe, add keyframe. We can see down here that we've now got a keyframe that's come into shot. So now if I jump forward, for example to here, okay, we're still pretty good. It looks pretty good, the shape's not too bad. But if I try and move this, it's going to bounce back. See, if I move this out, it bounces back. Now this is because of our keyframe. So what I want to do is I want to then add another keyframe here. So I'll hit 9 on the keyboard, and there we can see now we've got another keyframe that's been added. So if I wanted to, I can now move this, and it moves out. So what we need to do now is we need to then go through the whole piece, and we need to check. So there's another keyframe we can add. Let's just move this one up fractionally. That looks pretty good. We're still covering all the bases on there. Still the red dress is all within this shape. Okay, looks good. And jump forward again. Okay, there we go. So 9 is our keyframe. So what I want to do, obviously, I can select by clicking and dragging. Now I can move all of that shape. I can click and drag, and I can move. Obviously, I can individually move them one by one by doing this, by clicking and moving it out. Clicking, moving it out. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we jump forward again, and 9 on the keyboard. Obviously quite a lot here, so I can select that, move it all out, and remove that. Because of her lipstick, we want to obviously leave her lipstick as not being within this dress shape. Looks pretty good. Okay, and then again, let's move forward, and then 9 again. So let's move this shape forward, Let's move this top shape down a little bit. So we're set with that covering. And if you wanted to, we can obviously move this shape in a little bit, just to allow for that. And again, okay, now we're jumping onto the next scene. So what we can do is the left and right arrow keys go back frame by frame. So we're going a bit too far there. Okay, so we're going to add another keyframe, and let's move this one forward. Okay, nice, and one frame forward, if that's still good. One more frame, add another keyframe, with 9 from the keyboard. If you wanted to move this, I can move that. Okay, looks good. And then one more keyframe, and there we're out of shot now. Okay, looks pretty good. And then obviously she does come back into shot a little bit further. There we go, not too far. Okay, so she's back into shot about here. So obviously we're going to add another keyframe, and we're going to move the entire shape, just because it's all there, just to cover that small section. And then jump forward again, add another keyframe, pull that forward. Okay, let's jump forward again, and add another keyframe, 9 on the keyboard, covering the shape. There's our, we've covered our dress, and forward fractionally a bit more until we want to get her out of shot, basically. So there we go, that's that one, it's covered, and possibly the last one, and that looks pretty good, but I'm just going to move it a little bit, just so it's there, and now we should be back to there. Alright, great, so we've put all our keyframes in. We can see all our keyframes if I zoom in, there they all are. There's our keyframes. So now, if I go back to the beginning, and I press spacebar to play this clip, we can't see much, but anyway, let's go back into our secondaries so we can probably see it a bit better. Let's go back into our secondaries. Okay, and what we can see is we've got this white line that has come around the dress, and we can see that it's cut it out. It's made this all black and white, and this, obviously still her legs are there, aren't they? The still legs are in there, and the legs are all in there. That is because we're still working in our secondaries tablet here. So what we've got on the right hand side is we've got 3 areas which we can click. This is our final matte image. This is our work in progress image. This is showing us what we've cut out, the shape that we've defined that we're going to manipulate. And this shows us our luma and our saturation levels. Okay, so going into like the gamma, and so we can affect this. So what we're going to do is we go into our second one, which is where we're going to start manipulating stuff. And we can hit the little picker, select a color. When we hit this, it comes up with some little crosshairs, kind of red crosshairs. Now obviously we're choosing, because we want to manipulate this to remove all the background but keep the red. So the red's very important. So we're going to manipulate this by clicking on the red. There we go. Now we can see a couple of things that have happened. Obviously this has all gone kind of black and funny looking. Shape here is all normal. This is obviously the normal hit. And here in our kind of gamma view, we can see it's little kind of white and blacky bits. So if I click on my third selection here, it moves me to my lumas and my gammas. Now I can move my color choices up here in the right hand top corner to make this dress become as white as possible. This is what we're going for. We want this to become as white as possible. So I'm going to pull out this a little bit. You see not really much is happening, but if I move this one out, we can see more white is coming in. Now if I move it up heavily towards the red, that looks pretty good. Now I want to get a lot of luma in here and a lot of gamma going on. So I'm going to pull my luma and gamma apart from each other. So it's going to create this white, but obviously I don't want the chest area, because I don't want that. But I want this dress to be purely white as possible. So let's just move this apart a little bit more. Oh, too much there. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So what we can do is, if I go now, we've chosen our red, we're happy with our red, I can go to my first one. This is my final view of my image. Now if you wanted to, you can manipulate your midtones and your shadows and your highlights to make this dress color change. Now that's not what I'm aiming to do today. I don't want to do that today. So what I want to do today is I want to switch to my outside. So you can see here it says my control has got an inside or an outside. Obviously inside is inside my shape. That's what's going on inside my shape. If I click on the outside, this is going to manipulate everything that's outside my shape. Okay? And all I want to do is I want to pull my saturation from 1 all the way down to 0. So I can either type 0 and hit enter, okay? Or on my mouse I can use the scrolling button, and I can pull up and down on the scrolling button and then manipulate my saturation. And there we can see that because we only selected our red, everything that is not red, that is related and outside, also obviously inside the shape because there's no red on her legs at all, we have pulled all the saturation out of the image. Okay, and that is how we can work with this. So what we can do now, once we finish this, we can then render all of this. So we can go to our render queue, we can add our unrendered and hit render. Now this is going to take the time of the clip, which in this case is about 20 seconds, so it shouldn't take any longer than 20 to 30 seconds depending on the detail that you put into it. We're nearly there, finally. And then now we're done. Okay, great. So our final stage, so we can obviously go back into Final Cut, is we can send this to Final Cut by going to File, Send to Final Cut Pro. We click that and it's going to import the XML, and then we can see here we've got something that's called red dress from color. This is a new sequence that's been created, so if I double click that, we can see that we've got the red dress from color sequence, and in here we have our manipulated red dress with our black and white background. Okay, so that's one of the many things that we can do within the software program Color that I've looked at today. So I hope this has been useful. I will look into some other stuff as well in a bit more detail with the software, but I hope that's good, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.